Welcome to this edition of Like Nobody's Business. I'm Mary Beth Sewald with the Vegas Chamber. We are honored and pleased today to have with us the governor of the state of Nevada, Governor Joe Lombardo. Governor, thanks for being with us today.
Absolutely, my pleasure.
Well, we appreciate it. We appreciate your service to our state. You're in a very different role now, obviously, as you
A
were
little bit.
before. A little bit, yes. Tell us a little about what it's been like. I mean, you have really hit the ground running, it seems like.
Well, part of it is just part of the process in the state of Nevada, right? The election cycle is cumbersome because upon election, you're thrown right into a legislative session. And part of that process is you don't know what your budget is. You're relying on the previous governor's budget. Hopefully you have enough time and education and ability to make the changes towards your platform going into the legislative session. So that's been the biggest hurdle for me and my staff and the organization, is to get our arms wrapped around that. But um, then we go into the legislative session and it's completely different than my previous job, right? I get to develop the budget. I get to determine who I hire and fire and operations in totality. But in the way the government is set up in every state in the nation, and the Constitution within that specific state, to include the nation, you have to operate in certain parameters, and that is a little bit different to me. And but it's all good, because no matter how bad our system is, it's always the best system in the world, in my opinion. So we're getting through the session. We're dealing with the nuances of the session and negotiation and communications and everything that we want to achieve. And then, for the benefit of your listeners, the governor's office is privy to 5 bills, the governor's bills. And so far, we've only had hearings on 3 of the 5. Hopefully, we will get a hearing here soon forth on the next 2, and then all during that process, we're negotiating along the way. And so nothing has come to finality, nothing's come to a bill. And the other unfortunate piece for me is the awareness of how slow the process is. And we got today's date. I think it's probably 27 days out to the end of the legislative session, and I've had the privy to sign 5 bills. And you hear that, in the coffers and the inventory, there's well over probably 700 bills still available out there, and that makes it difficult to have good conversations on those important bills that need conversations, when you feel that there's a need to rush it through, in due time. So, there's nuances and the differences of the job, but there's also the majority of it is working with people. And a lot of people think the sheriff is preoccupied with every 24/7 crime, and that's not the case. It's a big organization. You got to work with all the nuances of an employee base and everything that affects their quality of life, and also the people in the community. And that's what's similar with the governor is, you're still working with people. You're dealing with an organization of people, and what you're trying to achieve is all to the benefit of Nevadans.
Everyone I've spoken with has been incredibly impressed with, I mean, your level of knowledge. It's been no big surprise or anything, but to be that knowledgeable to that degree about so many issues, I assume perhaps the campaign might have been a bit of, a learning process for you, but you seem to have really hit the ground running, like I said before, and you're really kind of firing on all cylinders for the state.
Yeah, I'm glad you say that, because, with the police department, remember I said, as the sheriff, I'm dealing with a lot more policy and
Right.
procedure than I am, with the nuances of crime. And the governor's thing is, it's a matter of education. So through the campaign, you're educating yourself on the issues that people are concerned with. So you want to make sure you speak with some kind of sense of knowledge on whatever those items may be. But then you're thrown into the buck stops here proverbial as the governor. And I think it's important for me to have an education going into those meetings and having conversations, and knowing the unintended consequences as a result of your decision. All those things come with educating yourself. And I pride myself of doing the homework um, associated with any particular issue, because I think leadership is confidence, right? So people have to have the confidence and the trust in you. If you come in and across the board just rely on them to do their job, and and just get me, talk to me at the end, you're unable to provide direction. And that's what a leader's required to do, is provide direction. And plus, you want them to act on what you believe in, because you're the governor, you ran on certain items, you want to make sure those items are addressed. And if you're not paying attention, they won't be. And so that's how I assimilate. That's how I conduct myself in a leadership position, and ensure that people know they're not wasting their time in talking with me.
And when you take that leadership approach, you can shape the actual process.
Right, right, right. You can provide some feedback and some suggestions and advice through the process. And I think that's an important piece.
Speaking of your leadership style and your vision for the state, we talk a lot about economic development, economic diversification, and things like that. How do you plan to utilize the Governor's Office of Economic Development, GOED, to really strengthen our economic diversification here in Nevada?
Well, I mean, you have to look at, why would somebody come here, right? And you have to look if they're going to lift up their roots, or even if they're an incubator company, or if they're, an historical company. Why would they convince their employee base and personally the principals of the company to lift up their company and move to another location? There's a lot of expense associated with that. There's a lot of known associated with that. So how do you answer the questions? Are there concerned? In my understanding, the primary concern: do you have an available workforce? Right? Do you have an educated available workforce? And two, what is the regulatory, licensing, and the tax environment in the other environment? And if it's not any more beneficial for where they're coming from, it's a moot, question. It's a waste of time and a failed exercise. So me knowing that, I wanted to ensure that we did have a stable, predictable tax environment. My platform was based on no new taxes. I believe we have a significant injection into the system via the infrastructure bills and the CARES Act and other federal stand-up programs. And we have to ensure we're addressing those incentives appropriately before we decide to go in an additional direction, and by raising taxes, property taxes, and all those different items that address modified business tax, all those things that address small business and large business and decisions to come here. So if that's predictable, and you have a position on that publicly, and people are confident you're not going to stray from that, and you're making sure you're addressing, burdensome ordinances and licensure and permitting, and you're always cognizant of that to the benefit of the business, people are going to come. The proverbial, if you build it, they will come. That's what I'm looking for.
Are you as hands-on with sort of economic development? You mentioned, your approach to leadership. Do you or will you have an opportunity then to meet with some of these companies prior to their potentially moving here? Is
Yeah,
that how you?
that's been a regular function. Surprisingly, it's happening more often than not in the governor's office. And I was approached originally from my staff and said, you shouldn't be in these meetings. Let us do the initial work. But I said, no, if it's a company that I'm attracted to, because of my positions, as a conservative and what we're trying to do in state government, I want to talk to them personally. I want to speak to the principals face to face, and I'm a big proponent of your word is your bond. And I want to be able to get a good vibe from the person and make sure they're, one of the things we quite often talk about, Mary Beth, is part-time versus full-time employees, or gig workers. And it's important we have stable workforce and ability to, when we talk about tax abatements and other incentives, and they promote themselves as, well, we're going to bring this many employees into the environment, and in so many years it's going to be this many employees, and this is our revenue stream, and this is what we're going to do in the housing market, and all those promises, you're hoping are going to come to fruition. And I think it's hard for them to fabricate it if you're not looking them in the eye. If you are looking them in the eye, it's harder to do. And I think it's important for me to realize that and have a sense of what direction we're going in, and whether the people that are working for me are have the same vision as I do.
Well, and what strikes me as you talk is that you take a very personal approach to everything really, but to economic development. And so if there's a company sitting across the table from you and they look you in the eye and they tell you they're going to be a good community citizen and they're going to give back to our community, and they look you in the eye and they tell you that, you figure it's going to be pretty hard for them to go back on their word.
Right. Exactly. And unfortunately, in history, we've had it happen more than once.
We'll be back right after this.
Remember Old Vegas where the customer was king? The Casablanca in Mesquite is just like Vegas used to be. Play over 40 of your favorite table games.
Play over 800 slot and video poker machines and get comps, free play, and cash back.
Get away and play 2 18-hole championship golf courses. Or pamper yourself in our full-service salon and unwind in our world-class spa. Now this is my kind of getaway. Reserve your $99 golf or spa getaway today. It's just like Vegas used to be.
As humans, we're visual creatures. In fact, American adults spend nearly 6 hours each day watching video, and we're evolving and expanding across screens. Whether we're surfing the web at work, streaming our favorite show in a waiting room, or watching the game live at home, Cox Media's digital video solutions can deliver your business's message to consumers in a way that creates a meaningful connection and drives them to take action. Grow your business. Call Cox Media today.
Life's journey isn't just about what happens. At Nevada State Bank, we believe it's about who it happens with. The people who are there for I Do and for Welcome Home. The people who are there for your growing business. And the ones who are there for a lifetime. For every moment of life's journey, the people of Nevada State Bank are here for you. Because it matters who you spend life's moments with. And it matters who you bank with. Nevada State Bank.
This is the story of two businesses. Andy made a lemonade stand and hoped people would come. Jill did too, but she chose a team to get the word out about her lemonade stand. Jill learned early that advertising with the right team gets the best results. At Cox Media, we do this every day, helping your business grow to meet its potential. With our marketing expertise, Cox Media is your partner for advertising success. Don't let your business get left behind. Let's grow your business together. Contact Cox Media today.
Welcome back to this edition of Like Nobody's Business. I'm Mary Beth Sewald with the Vegas Chamber. We are honored today to have the Governor of Nevada, Governor Joe Lombardo. Governor, thanks for being with us.
Yeah, absolutely.
With Super Bowl host committee and others, as you're aware. And that's a really great project where we are working to, you and I've been talking about economic development, and we're working to leverage, I think, the Super Bowl and these events to really spur economic development here in Southern Nevada and potentially across the entire state.
Right.
So what's your vision for that aspect of how do we leverage these events to spur economic development?
That's a great question, and part of it, that's the state responsibility, right, to bring business to the state and quality of life, and that was the benefit of going to F1 in Miami. So we met with the numerous promoters from the other races, and they provided some feedback and after action on how we could build upon the economic development, and the big part of that is communication and experience. You're going to have to rely on a huge amount of word of mouth of people that come here and they see the experience and it was a beneficial experience, and they say, hey, I can see my company operating here, especially in the advertising space, in the communication space, to be able to sell their business or whatever it may be. And then when you talk about brick and mortar, it was a good environment, good experience. They provide great service and they know how to do it there. And the infrastructure is set up for it, for us to expand upon that. And, millions and millions of people looking in the TV and saying, hey, that's where I want to be. That's where I could bring my business, because it's a force multiplier. I can sell my business with built-in communication and built-in PR. But if we fail, even to the smallest amount, and your ingress and egress and transportation, you had a personal experience in Miami and the ability to get to the race. We got to make sure we address those kind of issues, and similar to what the Raiders did when they first showed up. How are we going to fix that experience, just even trying to get to the game and then actually exiting the venue? So all those things come into play.
It's all really important, but you've surrounded yourself with a fabulous team. They're some of the most incredibly talented people that I've personally ever met. So I'm personally quite confident that we'll get there, plus the team at Formula One and Super Bowl and so forth. So you got to be optimistic.
Yeah, and one of the pieces I want to make sure I express is the Nevada Department of Transportation. So they're responsible for the highways and freeway systems throughout the state. And for those who may not know, we're in the middle of Tropicana revamp. So there's a concern for the Super Bowl and F1. So we have to figure out how we can stop work and create a safe environment and make sure we have the ingress and egress addressed. And you talk about a team, they're on it, they're doing it, they're aware of it, and we're going to make sure it's seamless so that we have a great experience for everybody. And then we'll get right back to work, when the entertainment venues leave and make decision to go to another location for what they do. You know what I mean by that. But it's big projects that we have to have. We're sure we have a good team that we manage those different resources at the appropriate time and make sure we're getting it done.
Yeah.
All right. We don't want to have anybody say, I'll never go back there because I couldn't get there. Right. And I'd never go back there because it took me 5 hours to leave. And all those things have to be thought about.
It's-
And my team is aware of that. And I'm glad you mentioned them because any new executive, no matter what company it is, if you show up day one, you don't know the fabric of the company, the history of the company, or the culture of the company until you have your footprint in there. And here we are in close proximity of me showing up, and they got all the plates spinning at the same time. So,
Well, let's switch gears if we could, just for a minute, back to the legislative session.
Sure.
Switching gears, pun intended, by the way. We're in the middle of the 2023 legislative session. I know you have some priorities. I had the honor of testifying along with your Chief of Staff, Ben Kekeffer,
right.
education, modernization. I know you're one of your top priorities is education. Talk to us a little bit about that.
Yeah, and if you would ask me why is education a top priority? Because it builds opportunity, right? There's nothing worse than a young individual that graduates either a high school or college and there's no opportunity. And that's the fabric of the economy and the fabric of the community, is the education to be able to occupy that. And so when you're talking about business here, we're here at the Chamber of Commerce, right? We're talking about business. Do you have a workforce to occupy those jobs? And you don't without education. So, and that has been nuanced in the state of Nevada. And what I mean by that, we haven't been able to do that in the past. And, there's a lot of different reasons why. And it's important for the governor to be the focal point or the focus of all those resources to put towards education and ensure that we do have success. Now, it's nothing that we can do day one. I mean, it's like turning around a battleship. It takes a long time and a lot of effort and a lot of different resources, but you have to identify those gaps and make sure you're paying attention to those gaps and doing something about it. And that's the reason why. I think the entire success of a state is based off the back of education. And it's just not me saying it. Just look at it. It's nuanced across the United States. Some of the states that have very successful economic engines is because they also have a very robust, educated workforce, and it's important for us to realize that. But besides education, I think one of the nuanced needs for Nevada is ensure that we have a robust healthcare system. And that's all part and parcel to what we need to achieve in the future here in the state of Nevada, and ensure we address the gaps with that.
Another priority of yours has been modernization of our infrastructure, our government
Right.
offices, processes, and so forth. And I also got to testify regarding that in support of your bill. So tell us a little bit about why you're so committed to the modernization piece as well.
Well, government is slow. Government is slow to react, in the
Was
business.
that a surprise to you?
Yeah. No, I had a little bit of experience being the sheriff. It was still a big government agency, and there's a lot of checks and balances and approval procedures to get things done. But it's also execution, and a lot of problems with government is because it's so slow, people get frustrated and they fail to execute. And that was one of the eye-opening pieces for me day one, but I knew it going in. I knew just through research and knowing people that are in the environment and talking to those people that, the Nevada State was woefully behind the 8 ball. So here's an example I'll give you so as the sheriff, I had authority outside of fiscal affairs, which is the monetary governing body of Metro. But I had authority up to $100,000 without approval. In state government, you would think the governor would have something, commensurate to that. No, it's woefully unfunded. That's to the tune of $30,000, and you can't get anything done in today's dollars for $30,000. So either you have to go through the legislative process or the IFC process, and get approval to get things done. And so
Both of which would take forever.
right. And so part of that modernization bill is to identify those issues, identify those hurdles, and see how we can streamline it. And another piece on that is your workforce, right? You're only as successful as the people that are part of the workforce. And I would say it was archaic. That's the word I would use on how we hired people at the state level. The ability to apply, the ability to get your background checked, the ability to interview, and the ability to actually hire them. We're talking, 1 and 2 years. And in today's environment with communications and all the apps that are out there and the ability to know what jobs are open and everything, we finally identify somebody. And then by the time we get around hiring them, they've already gone somewhere else. And I recognized that when I was the sheriff and hiring police officers. It would take you a year to hire a police officer when they already got hired by another department. So those kind of things you have to fix, in part of the process. And there's other things like the rainy day fund. We have sufficient amount of money in the rainy day fund that was part of the modernization in case of time of crisis. We all learned those lessons, unfortunately, on the heels of COVID. The Nevada Way Fund. And the Nevada Way Fund is an intermediary. I won't even try the word. So it's in between the legislature and what we're trying to do in state government. We see financial opportunities outside of GoEd, and maybe we need to address an infrastructure need, and we got to throw some funds at that, in short order. That's the intent, to just to be more nimble and able to move without the draconian or the red tape processes that government quite often brings to you. And a lot of those processes hadn't been looked at in decades. And that's why it's important. Just like my executive order on ordinances, where no new ordinances till we figure out the ones that are archaic and non-useful anymore. Let's get rid of those and then we'll move forward. I think it's important for people to realize there's a lot of nuance, 150 spokes, I always say, in the wheel. State government, and only one of them can cause the entire government to fail as far as communications and perception and culture.
Are you optimistic about the session and that your priorities will move forward?
That's a good word, optimistic.
Optimistic. Cautiously optimistic?
Cautiously, I think that's better. I'm cautious about what's going to go on in the state government, legislature in 27 more days. I mentioned earlier that, about hearings and committees and votes. It's amazing how it gets crunched in a short period of time. And there's a lot of unintended consequences that occur when that happens. And I hate to make decisions in a vacuum. And we got to move a lot quicker. That's my opinion. And people say, well, you haven't been here, this is your first year. I say, yeah, but I know how processes work, and I know how to manage process, and I know how to write policy, I know how to develop policy, and we need to do a better job.
Well, on that note, Governor Lombardo, thank you so much for your service already to our state. We're very excited to work with you. We appreciate your support of the business community and of the chamber.
And I appreciate you saying that, my support of the business community, because it's not lost on me. It's not lost on me because it's more long-term. It's the fabric of our communities and our economy and our quality of life. And sometimes people lose that perspective. And that's why I appreciate the organizations such as the chamber.
What are you most looking forward to as governor?
Forward to?
Yeah.
June 5th.
Me too.
No, that's
After
not at
that.
all. You know what it is? I'm looking forward to change and instrumental change. I have some ideas on how we can do better as a state. I'm looking for a change in the ranking of our education system. I'm looking forward to a better quality of life in our safety, in our public safety within the environment we live in. So if it's a measurement stick from day one to year 8, we've gone forward, I'll be proud of that.
Well, you already have a lot to be proud of.
So
So congratulations on that. We really appreciate all your support and everything you're doing. And I know our viewers and our members at the Vegas Chamber appreciate you as well, as do all of us here in the state of Nevada. So thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate your
right.
time.
That'll do it for this edition of Like Nobody's Business. I'm Mary Beth Sewald.
At it again in 110, and the fire's just starting to burn. There ain't no keeping us down in this neon town. We've been waiting for our turn. Gonna roll the dice and go all night, ready for my lucky roll. Vegas, oh, we're doubling down. Vegas, yeah, we're doubling down. Doubling down. Vegas, Vegas, Vegas. Well, it's a party in the desert, but never felt bad. The city light's gonna shine. Gonna run into the fire. The stakes are getting higher. We're bigger and better this time. We won't let it slip out of our fingertips. Gonna cash in the chips that we burn. Vegas, oh, we're doubling down. Vegas, yeah, we're doubling down. Doubling down. Vegas, Vegas, Vegas. Woo! Vegas, yeah, we're doubling down. Doubling down. Vegas, oh, we're doubling down, down, down.
Life's journey isn't just about what happens. At Nevada State Bank, we believe it's about who it happens with. The people who are there for I do and for welcome home. The people who are there for your growing business. And the ones who are there for a lifetime. For every moment of life's journey, the people of Nevada State Bank are here for you. Because it matters who you spend life's moments with. And it matters who you bank with. Nevada State Bank.
This is the story of two businesses. Andy made a lemonade stand and hoped people would come. Jill did too, but she chose a team to get the word out about her lemonade stand. Jill learned early that advertising with the right team gets the best results. At Cox Media, we do this every day, helping your business grow to meet its potential. With our marketing expertise, Cox Media is your partner for advertising success. Don't let your business get left behind. Let's grow your business together. Contact Cox Media today.